We're straight up at 2 o'clock, and I am so excited to have this guest on our show. What does the next generation of leadership look like? Don't stop me now. It is James, say what, Buckley.
What up, Side B?
What up?
I got my signed copy right here. I love it.
Well, you participated in that, and I have to tell you, I have to tell everyone. So James and I got to know each other at an AAISP function, just briefly, and I just fell really in love with the way that he works and the way that he treats people, and his team and everyone around him was just impacted by that. So when I was writing the book, I called him to see if I could do an interview with him. And as I was interviewing with him, he started talking about his leader, John Barrows, and the dynamic team approach that they have together.
Yeah.
And this is a quality that is what I talk about when fans and musicians feed off of each other. James, tell me how that started.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say that I worked towards working with John for about 3 years, and I didn't even really originally plan on doing it. But when I met him and saw him speak at the original SaaStr event, everything he was saying lined up with like stuff I was thinking, and it validated my thoughts. What's up, Doug? Shout out Doug Lehman in layman's terms. I love it. So when him and I met, I said to myself, like, man, what a interesting fellow, right? Like just his thoughts and the way that he delivered was different to me. So I started saying, man, one day I'd love to work for that guy. And then fast forward like a couple of years, he hired Morgan. And that was like the green light, because I had been following Morgan, and Morgan and I had connected and become close. And then he hired Morgan, and I was like, oh man, like this is great. I'm like watching it happen. So then in 2019, I left a company that I had been selling for and doing prospecting for 4 years, Cirrus Insight, to a company called Ringlead, who's recently been acquired by ZoomInfo. And I joined that company, and I learned all about content, and my content game took this big leap forward. And then at the end of 2019, I got a call from John. We had done some content in the past. We met up at some shows. We had become friends over time. It had been a long time since we originally connected in 2015. And he said to me when he called me, the way you make people feel is amazing. You want to do it with me? And I remember saying, dude, just tell me where to sign. If that's your interview, I'm all in. Yeah. So I said yes. He said, give me some time. He lined it up, and I ended up starting with them. And this is my forever home. I get to have the best time of my life every single day coming to work. And that is so much better than what I hear most people say about their jobs. I love it. It's amazing. I get to help people. I get all types of wonderful messages back from people that say, this changed everything for me. And that's what I go for. That's my why. That's like, I get up in the morning for that.
Yeah. That is, and that's really the whole side B, right? It's how you make people feel.
Yeah.
That's how people are going to stay loyal.
I've heard the same thing said about music.
Oh, yes, you have, haven't you?
Yeah, the way it makes me feel, right? The way it makes me feel.
That's right.
I live my life in song. I can't help it.
Hey, that's okay. I think I sent you a little text there with Frank Sinatra when he was talking about singing "That's Life."
Oh yeah,
but that's sales in those words. So that. I think that is where we're all going for, is that next generation of leaders is to be the one who makes us feel like that. That we would cross any ethical, any trustworthy barriers to work for them, to work with them, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the adjustment I had to make. I had come from two companies that had hierarchies, right? And you reported up. And that was the way that I was trained from 2015 until 2020. When I joined the JB sales team in 2020, I remember feeling starstruck. I mean, here I am hanging out with Morgan and John Barrows, and two guys that I had looked up to for years. And I was like, man, this is like all a dream. And I remember we were in Vegas to film content, and John pulled me aside and he was like, hey, man, I really appreciate this pedestal that you put me on, but also I don't. We run a really flat organization. And if you can't get over this hurdle, you and me are going to have a problem. And I remember saying, hey, man, that makes a lot of sense, because my opinion matters and his opinion matters and Morgan's opinion matters, and everybody's opinion at this organization is valued at the same level. And because that's true, everyone has a seat at the table. So when we're sitting there throwing ideas around and talking about what's best for our customers, our clients, our audience, our members, all the people at the table have an input that resonates with the end goal, that end goal being provide the best possible value for our people that look to us for service, help, guidance, and so on.
So you're going towards that goal of that one mission statement, and everyone's input and everyone is being seen, heard, and respected.
100%.
And John will make the tough decisions. And that is that both and approach, but he's going to listen to everything that you guys have to say about it and really balance it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of leadership that we neglect, is our ability to take our frontline feedback and not feel like we're being attacked or assailed, but rather feel like this person's feedback matters, because it's much easier to say, hey, you guys need to do this and you guys need to do that. It's harder to say, what can I do to enable you to do those things? That's the part that I think our organization does quite well.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we have two other very prolific leaders at our space at our team. Megan Forgion and Chris Merrill are free thinkers, and they are not. Well, none of us are like helicopter people, right?
Mhm.
Where our jobs literally is to feed off each other, the energy that we give one another, and sparks each other's creativity and our passion, and that part of it goes such a long way.
Right. It kind of goes along with that lyric by the Struts. I want to live better days, never look back and say, could have been me.
Mm,
Right.
mm.
That to me just says it all. And when we have leaders that have that kind of approach, that really tap into, and I think yours and John's, both took the assessment. You're both as strong points. You're strong in many, but both of you were the saxophone, gracious and kind. So just having that in there and knowing the success, the actual success, there's numbers behind it, by leading an organization this way is what I find so impactful. What do you see coming down the pipeline here in the next 2-3 years as more employees want this kind of relationship from their leaders?
I see it being a deal breaker for their tenure. We know, especially in the sales space, we know that the average tenure is only about 18 months. So that's a year and a half. That's how long a salesperson stays with you. But I stayed at Cirrus Insight for 4 years. How did I do this? Why did I do this? There were two primary drivers for me staying at Cirrus. The first one was that I felt invested in. My leadership at the time, when I first started Say What Sales, my own personal brand, they were extremely happy with the attention that it was pulling in their direction. So
Yeah.
they encouraged me to go to more events, talk at more shows. I always show this to people. Not all of these are Cirrus Insight, but these are all a representation of sessions that I did or booths that I manned at events all around the globe. For 4 straight years, all I did was hop on a plane every week to another show and represent the company, screaming about Say What Sales. If you're a salesperson, we're the same person. It got to a point where I did it so much that everybody was yelling it back at me, and the company was like, this is amazing. Well, our VP of marketing left, and they ended up refilling that position with somebody that was less supportive of my personal brand. This prompted me to start feeling uncomfortable, not feel like I was being invested in as much. My pipeline dried up a little bit because they forbade me to make some of the content that I was consistently making and driving value with. I ended up moving away from the organization and moving towards a different organization that saw Say What Sales and what it did for Cirrus Insight. And fortunately, Ken Green, shout out Ken Green, he was like, I love everything you do, man. Come do it with me. And I did. Then I got to work with his son, Grant Green, who was like a production major, man. I mean, this guy had the tech knowledge, he had the media knowledge, and him and I had a similar personality, wide open, very outgoing. So we hit it off right away, and I learned so much about content creation, and that's what John was watching the
Ah,
entire time. So
mhm.
it ended up being this like natural progression towards better leadership that I was after the whole time. And
Right.
once I had the opportunity to get it, I seized that moment. And like I always say, like they're gonna have to let me go, and I'm gonna make it uncomfortable. Like
Yeah.
it's probably gonna be a sad thing for me.
I don't think that's gonna happen, my friend. I really don't. But let me ask you, here's another great point, that what I've seen from employees, they want that professional development, like you said.
Yeah,
They want to be seen, heard, and respected,
yeah.
and they want that flexibility to do that personal branding, to bring people in a different way that is really exceptional. Do you think that's a generational driven, if it's pandemic driven, or do you think that there's so much technology out there that we just want to be heard again?
I think it's a mix of all those things, but the one that you left out there is the abundance of opportunity to make something of ourselves. That's the one that I think more people see now than ever before. We live in a world where we are really, really well connected. We have the ability to create networks of people across platforms that just pull us together. I refer to this sometimes as the net of Indra, or the web of Indra. It's a Hindu principle that states that we're all well connected, right? All
Yeah,
through, if I pull one strand, it affects somebody else 5, 6 strands down there. And every node that connects two strands is a whole other set of instruments attached to it that are affected by that one pull. We're
mhm,
all connected in some way. As a result of us being so well connected, we see opportunity differently, especially post pandemic / mid pandemic, wherever your belief system might land today. Right now, it's an employee's market. They're coming in, and it's not your decision as to whether or not they get the job. You
right.
need them. It's their decision. So I hope you're saying things to them at these interviews and showing them things that lead them to believe that you are, one, invested in their long-term stability, comfort, and growth at your company, and number two, able to have free speech where their opinions and their thoughts are going to be valued and appreciated at a table, as opposed to, no, just come in and you're a warm body, go through the motions, do this job, say this thing. If that's what you're hiring for, there's interns out there that would love that job. Don't hire a full-time person for that. Your full-time people want to know that you have their back 100% of the time, all the time. And that's going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not they put their roots down at your company.
That's amazing, amazing comment, because that's exactly what we're seeing. And you're absolutely 100% right that it's now about, hey, these are the things I want to be. I want diversity of thought. I want to be at the table. I
Yeah.
also want some flexibility and some branding and what I can do. Hear me,
Yep.
right? So fantastic. And I think
Another
that,
one that people are saying is they want diversity. They want to be exposed to diversity. I love hearing this. That's
yeah,
one. If I'm walking around at your office tour and I'm seeing no diversity, I'm thinking to myself, this is probably not a place that's going to be very diverse, and that could stunt my growth too. I'm seeing
mhm.
that as a checkbox in a lot of employees and candidates now, and I'm really happy to see that. To be frank with you.
I've heard many people say that before they even go on to an interview or even before they apply to positions now, they look at the senior leadership team on their website,
Hmm.
right? They want to see diversity in that upper echelon chamber as well,
Sure, sure.
right?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Especially if you feel like you fall into that diversity bucket. You definitely want to see that. And it's funny too, like how often do you hear companies say we need more diversity, but then they only promote a specific demographic, right? You see that all the time. So it's important that we are like practicing what we preach, recognizing the necessity for change in the market, and then taking action that shows people that are coming into the market this can happen for you too, regardless of where you might sit on the diversity scale.
Right. So it's really walk the talk, right?
Sure,
Let's
walk the talk, but then also like show, like if you're walking the talk is great, but like you've got to show people that. You have to
Yeah,
be proud of that. You have to promote that about your company. It has to be something that we put as a cornerstone for the way we build our foundations moving forward.
that's a great point. Great point there. So, James, we were just sitting, what, 2 weeks ago at a table listening to some great music.
That's right.
How, yeah, and you have a copy of my book. How do you feel? Because you know how I feel. Do you feel that music can change a leader's mood instantaneously and help them be a better leader?
Um, so I want to answer your question directly, and then I want to talk a little more generally. Directly, I think that sending a leader a song or a lyric that resonates with them in a specific moment can have a dramatic impact on their reactions moving forward through the day. Instant change can be achieved through lyrics or music itself, the entire piece. So because music moves me, that's a something I say, that part of it resonates very well with me. If I'm feeling down, sometimes I will listen to a song to pick me up. If I'm
Mhm.
feeling down and I want to feel down, I want to enjoy that moment. I want to, waller in it, if you will. I will
Or the
listen to
beat.
music that allows me to waller in it for a while,
Mhm.
and that will make me feel better long term. So instant validation and or counteractiveness, a counter, if you will, is achieved through music, and I think that's true for all human beings. Period. On a larger scale, I think that music has a tendency to guide us through our processes and routines, but I think it also has a tendency to open doors to free thought. Great example. I have a playlist called Energy that I've created. And when I'm working out and I need energy, that playlist plays heavy in my head as I'm working out, as I'm lifting, as I'm doing the cardio, as I'm stretching. That energy is I need it. But when I'm working on selling, when I'm working my pipeline, when I'm creating, that same energy is distracting. It's not as focus. So I have a separate playlist for focus that I
Mhm.
play, and there's no lyrics in this. This is all just or instrumental, right? And that's because I don't need the distraction. I need the focus. I
Yep.
don't want to be distracted by the energy. For on a larger scale, I believe that music is the soundtrack to our lives and all of the moments in between, right? So that's me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only the soundtrack, but also the different playlists that we have. I used to have a playlist going driving into work
Mm,
when we were driving then, driving into work that would pump me up and let me know that this is that I'm getting ready to see 32 people and it's great.
mhm.
And then on the way home, it would be I'm going home to be with my family,
Decompress.
decompress.
Nights in white satin.
A little bit of moody blues there.
Yeah.
So,
1967, The Days of Futures Past. If you guys haven't listened to that album, they were asked to instrumentally describe the average man's working day, the average person's working day. So the
yeah.
whole album consists of sunrise as you come out of the dream phase and sunset as you fall back into it. And they begin and end in the same way. It's one of the most interesting albums. I believe it's the first album where an entire orchestra was used to create this
Oh,
particular
wow.
experience. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's great. So, we only have probably about 10 minutes here. And boy, I've got so many more questions for you. Um, do you have a leadership playlist? I know you have a working one, but do you have one that's based off of your graciousness, your who you are
Mm.
internally? Three.
So I go through phases where I listen to specific artists that have a specific vibe for a long time. Right now, I'm in a couple different ones. The first one is I listen to a lot of the High Kings. It's an Irish vocalist group, if you will. Some people don't know this, but the High Kings are the prodigy, the prodigy, that's the sons of the Clancy brothers and the Macomb brothers, Liam Macomb, or Liam Clancy and Tommy Macomb. It's their children that are in the High Kings. Or I believe two of them are. So I listen to the High Kings a lot, and then I've been a big fan of Benjamin Todd and the Lost Dog Street Band for a little while now. And I just recently met or fell in love with Bella White, who plays a little tiny guitar, and she sings like a good bluegrassy feel. So,
Oh,
and then someone else turned me on to Gangsta Grass, which is like bluegrass and hip hop mixed together. So if you haven't heard that, those are all really good groups to check out. That's what I've been vibing with lately.
have you? And that's awesome. I think for me, I've been doing a little bit of Van Morrison, a little
Mm,
bit of Bob Marley. I kind of go back in time because it's kind of nostalgic
yeah.
too, you know. But I also think, I talk about in our effective leadership workshop that, music is transformative. We have a music based on where we were when we were 5 or 6, where we were when we were in our teens, and where we are now. Where would you say your music has grown to, or what was your favorite song then?
Yeah, this is a good question. Thank you for asking it. When I was a teenager, a lot of the music I was listening to was angry rock, hard rock music. And that's because teen angst is real, right? Like when
Mhm.
you're a teenager, everything is extremely chaotic. Your life is full of moments that are last minute. And because that's true, our brains are wired a little bit differently. They function differently, and we lean into the anger. I also grew up in the 90s when grunge was a huge movement. So Pearl Jam's 10 album was hot, Nirvana's Nevermind.
Yeah.
That was all the stuff. I was a big hard rock fan. So Rob Zombie, Pantera, these are all stuff that Slipknot, like I listened to all that hard rock stuff.
Mhm.
Fast forward to late 90s, early 2000s, I got more into the hip hop and R&B and the groove. So I learned a little bit about that side of the fence. And now I would argue that, and I grew up listening to oldies as a kid. My dad was a big oldies fan, Dion and the Belmonts,
The
Chuck Berry,
Temptation.
the Beach Boys. My first concert was the Beach Boys in Chicago, in Miami.
Oh my goodness.
Great set, right? Just amazing. So I've graduated now to a point where they call my playlist the bipolar playlist. You really never know. You never know what vibe you're going to get. But because I have about 70 gigs of music on my phone alone, like every time you hear a vibe and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling that, you just move on to the next thing until you catch it. I got into James Brown and the funk, the super heavy funk, for a while. So I'm very eclectic. You never know what's pumping out of my radio next.
Oh, I'm telling you, that's how I am. I can just go through, I have a playlist on Spotify that is for every song that I like,
Yeah,
and I'll just drive through them. But
yeah.
interestingly enough, I was driving to Chicago, and I'm putting out a new series called Lyrics for Leaders,
Mm,
and that starts in April. But what I did is, as I was driving, I have a way to listen to lyrics that all of a sudden remind me, oh, that would be a good leadership point.
yeah.
And I think that's said for anything in life,
Yeah,
right?
I have a similar feel for motivation. If I hear something in a rap song, I will use it in my hashtag hip hop and sales, and I'll post it out there. But I think that brand is getting ready to change to music and sales, so I'm hoping to broaden the scope there.
Oh, good. Good, good, good. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about?
Yeah, so I started hip hop and sales because I'm big into hip hop. I've been a huge hip hop fan since the mid '90s, when probably I would say earlier than that actually, because I was big into Run DMC and the Beastie Boys back in the '80s. I was born in '81, so I was there to kind of see it come up from nothing, and become what it is today. And everybody used to talk in the 80s and 90s about hip hop in a negative way. They would say, "Oh, it's drugs, it's the belittling of women." There were all these labels that it caught really early on. But that kind of stuff wasn't the stuff that I was hearing. I was hearing phrases about overcoming adversity and becoming successful in the face of obstacles, and making it anyway, and getting you know
Getting
living a life that you want to live. Like that's the stuff I was hearing. And that's the stuff that I felt. So I started hip hop and sales to quote these rap songs that had these little inspirational phrases. And then I started doing raps myself. And the response that I got was bananas. I didn't expect so many people to like jump on LinkedIn and start throwing bars down, but they did.
yeah.
And it was just a lot of fun. So I'll probably bring that back at some point, but I want to change it more to like music in general because I don't want to silo it into the hip hop anymore. I feel like that is exclusatory and that's not what I'm going for.
Well, yeah, and that's what I love about music. It's so universal. It's such a universal language, and there's no judgment in it. You
Yeah,
know, what you hear is what you hear, and you hear lyrics different than I hear lyrics, but they're both powerful.
yeah,
So, I think that's great. I think once this leader or lyrics for leaders comes out, you should tap in a few of your own in there, and that
I
would be
definitely
great.
will.
I love that. Is there anything that we can do for you that 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 would help you continue to do the great work that you're doing?
Yeah, come on out and join us at joinjbsales.com and become a member. We're going to give you access to the Slack channel and you can have access to us directly there, all of us. I love that part of it. And share your experience. That's what we want. We want you to have a good experience with us and learn how to do sales in a way that's effective for you, that works for you consistently. And we want you to share that experience. And that's it. That's all we want to provide. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to your listeners, I would love to have that. And you can check it out at joinjbsales.com.
Joinjbsales.com.
That's right.
That's great. So the listeners also can grab a copy of the executive summary right
And your
off the
book.
plate and the book. That's
Yeah.
right. Did you get a chance to read it on your flight home?
No, I didn't because I slept. It was my 9th flight in like 3 weeks. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
ready. I was ready.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. If you'll sit tight for just a minute, I want to give you a little chat here, but thank you for coming on. And everybody, I want to thank you for listening to LinkedIn Live. Don't Stop Me Now Leadership, because we're on a roll to make sure that we're getting the leaders in place that have their side B and side A, that take a both and approach to leadership, much like James was talking about. So thank you, and we'll see everybody later.
Bye, everybody.